Okay, our game doesn't actually do much at the moment. All we can do is move up, down, left and right. It's not very exciting. So we want to make a game where you have to avoid enemy and collect things. Okay, so we're going to eat some food that's going to be randomly scattered around the screen, and we're going to avoid some enemy, which are some rocks, also randomly scattered around the screen. Okay, and for this we're going to use types. Okay, and types are something that define a field, are defined by fields, arrays of fields. Okay, so basically what they are is just things that if you have multiple objects that have similar properties, say lots of bricks or lots of aliens in a Space Invaders game, and you just want to copy them multiple times with the same properties, or lots of bullets for example, or lots of dots to eat, and they all have the same properties, then we use something called types, which contain arrays of fields. Okay, this might sound a bit complicated, but it's not at all once you get used to it. Okay, so it's just like copying objects or making an array of objects. Okay, that just are copies of itself. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the first part. There are three parts to this. First part is we need to define the type. Okay, so we're going to have a type for the food, and it's going to have two fields, field X and field Y, and I like to indent these, okay, because it makes it easier to read. And then you have to put end type to close the type. Okay, also to make it a little bit neater, we can actually define it like field X, comma Y. Okay, that's exactly the same thing as going type food, field X, field Y, end type. So that's exactly the same thing. Yeah, we can just define it on the same line, like we did with the variables. Okay. Okay, and we also need another one for rocks. So we'll just copy and paste that and put rock. Okay, and it has an X field and a Y field because the food and the rocks, the foods and the rocks are not going to be moving. Okay, they're just going to be randomly scattered around the screen, so we just need two fields, one for the X position and one for the Y position. Next thing we have to do is decide how many copies we want. Okay, and we use a for next loop, and this is a special for next loop for the types. Okay, so we want for an integer equals 1 to 20, because we're going to have 20 of them. Okay, so and then we're going to make the type in the computer's memory. Okay, so we're going to generate some new rocks, and the notation for this is R for an individual rock. We're just going to use R. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it, for an individual rock, so one of the individual rocks, any one of them. Okay, and the type is rock, which has two fields, X and Y, and we generate a new rock in the computer's memory. Okay, and we've also got to give it the properties, and the properties are its random X position, so we denote R type X with a backslash, so this is the X position of the rock, okay, for iterations 1 to 20. Okay, so we're going to have it different each time, so we can use a random number from 0 to 640 across the screen. Okay, and the same for R type Y we also want a random number for R type Y down the screen from 0 to 480. Okay? Okay, so all the R's from 1 to 20, all the rocks, the 20 rocks that we have a random X position and a random Y position. Okay? So RND meaning random. Okay? So that's our for next loop. Okay, for generating lots of rocks with random positions. Okay? And the random position will obviously be different every time, so it will just scatter them around the screen. And we also need to do that for the food. Okay, so we can just simply copy that and do the same for the food. This is still in the initialization phase of the program. Okay, so we just change all the variables to food, and we're going to use F for an individual food. Okay, and we need an X position for the food and a Y position, which is also going to be random. Okay, so that's now in the computer's memory. It knows what a food is, it knows what a rock is, it knows how many rocks and where we want to put them on the screen, and it knows how many foods and where we want to put them on the screen. So when we go into the main loop, we just have to refer to the types, okay, for rock and food. Okay, so in the case, we have two cases, case 1, case 0 and case 1. Okay, so we want to put our types in here in case 1. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is simply make a new function and then put the function on the end in the function section of the program. Okay, so we're going to put update rocks and food. Okay, and we're going to put this in the functions. Now we have to make this function. Okay, so it's going to appear in case 1. Okay, so let's put that there and define the function. Okay, and put end function for the end of it. Okay, and now we're actually going to use the types. Okay, so first we have to draw the food and check if it's eaten. Okay, so we're going to color it first. We're going to give it a color, and we're going to give it a nice green color. That's going to turn out red, green, blue, remember, from the color command. Okay, so it's going to turn out nice and green. Okay, so we need a for next loop, because we're doing this to all the foods. Okay, and this is a special for next loop for types. It's denoted for f.food equals each food. Okay, because now we're using it. These are the properties or what we're going to do for each food. Okay, so we're going to have a rectangle, and it's going to start, the top left is going to be food type X, comma, food type Y. Okay, and it's going to be 10 by 10. Okay, next we need some collision detection. Okay, so I will tabulate that. Okay, so if then statement, if rect overlap and the rectangles we want to overlap are the player. So those are the parameters for the player at XY 10, and it's 10 by 10. And of course for the type food, it's FX, F is at FX, and FY, and it's also 10 by 10. Okay. And when we eat food, we want it to get a little bit more difficult, so we want the speed to increase. Okay. Notice we declared it as a hash variable, which means it's a floating point variable, so we can add 0.2. We don't have to put hash here because we've already specified it as a hash or pound variable, but we can if we want. It doesn't matter, but you don't have to because we already declared it as a hash variable or pound variable. Okay, and then we also want to delete the food. We want it to disappear, so delete F, and then we want to, if I tabulate this, so there's two things happening in the if statement. The speed increases and we delete F, and then we close the end if statement, the if statement with end if. Okay, and we also do a very similar thing for the rocks. Okay, so we just copy and paste this and change the variables and change what it does when you hit a rock. So for our rock equals each rock, and rectangle R and R. If rectangles overlap, we want it not the food one, we want it the rock. So if it collides with a rock, then we don't want the speed to increase. In fact, it doesn't matter. We don't want to even delete the rock. It doesn't matter. What we want to do is we want to end the game. Okay, so we want it to end. So we put status. Remember, a status of a game equals 0, and it will go back to the title screen. And that's really it. One thing I've forgotten is just a comment on the code. I should put that there. Draw rocks and check for collision and end game, or go back to title screen. Okay, and also one more thing, we will need it a different color, so we'll color it a different color, 255, 0, 255. Okay, so it's going to turn out a purpley color. Okay, and then we'll run the game. Okay, I'll just tidy it up. So we've got our for each next loop for food and for the rocks. Okay, and we've put it in our case 1, so it's going to appear here. Okay, let's run the program. Press enter to start. Okay, and as we eat them, it gets faster and faster and faster, and we want to avoid the purple ones. It gets more and more difficult. Okay, this is basically the premise for a Pac-Man game. It's just a demonstration of how to use types. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Okay, and press enter to start. Okay, so if you wanted to program a Pac-Man game and you wanted to learn how to use types, you know, if you're making Space Invaders, it's going to save you a lot of effort. Okay, so that's basically how to do it. Okay, thank you.